everyone, and welcome to my first rotation of my Medieval Charter Challenge. So we are in the middle of the woods here with our Forager peasants. Now that is Oren on the right with the black hair, and then Ashlynn with the red hair. And they have a very simply furnished little hut that they're living in. They don't have a lot of possessions, as you can see. Oh, and they already got started on starting a family without me. And there's round 2, I guess. Gotta love ACR, right? So as I was saying, this is a very simply furnished hut they have. Their kitchen is very small, they have a hearth and a tea cauldron, and basically they just have the basics. And including these shells they found on the beach that seem to be imbued with some kind of fairy magic that make it so you can hear other people when you talk into them. So, anyways, surprisingly, Ashlynn did not get pregnant from their 2 ACR woohoos that they did. And when I play challenges like this, I like to get the family started. And, she does have a want to have a baby, so I'm going to have them woohoo. And while that's going on, they have some visitors. And the people in the guards' uniforms they live in the guards' barracks together, and these are all like townies who moved into the guards' barracks, and their job is to protect the town from fires and criminals. But peasants have to pay a premium fee if they want the guards to come when they have a fire. Of course, maybe Oren can just get in with Jan Tellerman. Ashlynn has no idea they're out there farting hearts at each other while she's cooking everyone dinner. And they're all eating here together. And Jan starts talking about woohoo, which is a little odd. But maybe she knew what they were doing when they weren't answering the door at first. And then Oren and Jan are just kind of awkwardly gardening right next to each other. And then he is just so overcome with passion that he gives her a friendly hug. And she accepts it. Later that night, Oren goes out onto their little portion of land, and he starts harvesting some forageables to sell tomorrow and taking care of their trees. And then Jan and that guy get into a fight. I forgot what his name was. Is it Joe Carr, maybe? Anyways. So, the next morning, Ashlynn gets up early and she cooks some breakfast for the 2 of them. Now, I mentioned this in the prologue, but just in case you didn't watch it or you have a hard time keeping all, 20 people straight, Ashlynn is from a merchant family, and back home it was a huge disgrace when she married Oren, and she was actually exiled from her family, basically. And so that's how she learned how to forage, is by living in the woods with Oren and learning to make a living off the land. And, they're talking about that woohoo, and she suspects she might be pregnant. So we'll see how that goes. Now, here she is foraging some berry baskets. And So she's gotten quite skilled at foraging, despite the fact that, she had a bit more of a upper class upbringing where she didn't really have to do this kind of labor like this. But as she's out foraging, she suddenly is feeling nauseous, and she's thinking to herself, I think I might be pregnant. So she's feeling excited about the possibility of having a baby. It is something that she wants. And I think that she likes the idea of being able to pass on her foraging skills that she learned to her kids. Now, Oren is going to start up a small business right out in front of their little peasant hovel. So they just have this little table where they can sell the baskets of berries and the mushrooms and the fruit that they've foraged. And here we have Orlando Santowski, and he is one of the apprentices at the guards barracks. So they have 2 teenage apprentices. They have him and Sophie Miguel, who you will see later in her medieval form. And so Oren here, he really does want to provide for Ashlynn and for the future children they might have. And he does try really hard to sell things and to be a good businessman, but as you'll see, he kind of struggles a bit with this. And if Hughie's just walking around in his underwear, as you do. And so Oryn and Ashlynn work together to keep the business running and to sell things and restock everything and run the cash register beans, I guess. Now, Oren is talking to Meadow here, and Meadow is a very tough customer. She's actually part of a clan that is a semi-nomadic group of people, and so they pass through the area of Wintervale in the spring, and then they leave for the winter. So they just got here recently, and meanwhile, back inside, Ashlynn made salad for everyone from her forageables. As I was saying, Meadow's part of this clan of people who travels around, and they spend a lot of time in the area of Wintervale. So they arrived here at the first of spring and were kind of surprised to see that there were people who are living here now, and there's like a settlement here, because they've been used to just having, coming here and having a lot of land for grazing and foraging and stuff. So maybe that's why she's not very impressed with Oren, is because she's still trying to figure out who these people are and what they're doing here. But we'll get to see their little clan in probably a later episode. And for now, you can just watch Oren fail. Oh, and Ashlynn is definitely pregnant. She got her first baby bump. And now she's gonna come out and try to make a sale to Meadow, hoping Meadow will take pity on her because of her condition. But no dice, so she's just decided to restock instead. I do have to say, one thing I wish I could change about this mod is that, oh, and look, Orlando's complaining. Already we have a complaint, so yeah, like I said. Anyways, it is a little frustrating that whenever you have a home business, anything you forage goes into the business owner's lot. So it took me the longest time actually to be able to get Ashlynn to do the restocking, because I'd have her forage stuff and I'd be like, wait, why is it not in her inventory? But yeah, it was in Oren's inventory because he's the business owner. And then also you can only restock from the business owner's inventory. So anything you want to restock, you have to put in the business owner's inventory. So yeah, it took me a little too long to figure that out. But now that I know how to work it, I just wish that, I guess, there was a way to change the settings or something. But maybe that's just the way that Open for Business is. So we made a few sales on our first day. Of course, Arthur here is one of the yeomen who is he's like lower middle class, so he is a class above Oryn and Ashlynn. So Oren's kind of hoping to make a sale to him because he'd like to, have someone who has a little bit deeper pockets spend some money at his establishment. And yeah, at this point, I locked the house from having anyone but the household enter it. I don't know if this was a mistake, maybe because, as you can see, Melissa Fancy is not happy, but I was just getting so annoyed with random people just like traipsing through the house and eating the food and going in the back and like messing with the garden. And so I locked it, and I don't know if that, because as you'll see, we end up not getting the best rating. I don't know if that contributed to the poor ratings or to people not wanting to buy things, but I found it kind of frustrating. I don't know, one of my biggest pet peeves about The Sims 2 is when like total randos just walk in your house. So I usually end up locking the front door. But yeah, and Melissa was not happy with me doing that. So we'll see how that goes. And Meadow did not end up buying anything, and Melissa just cornered Oren and yelled at him about probably the fact that the door was locked. I don't know. So all in all, it was we at least sold a few things. And then Oren spent that night doing dishes while Orlando yelled at the door. And that was day 2. So the next morning, Ashlynn got up to make breakfast and then to do some foraging for the home business, so they'll have more things to sell. Now, as I had mentioned, she comes from a merchant family, and so I think this explains why she has a maternity outfit that is much nicer than you would expect for a peasant, is because she did bring some of her old clothes with her. And then at this point, it's the middle of the night, Oren hears a sound outside, and so he gets up and he sees her and he realizes, oh my gosh, I didn't see your baby bump. You're pregnant. And he's excited. He's very excited. And then the next morning, he harvests some of the lemons from the wild lemon tree growing on their property, which he is very excited to sell at his little home business. And he just kind of spends the first couple hours of the morning foraging and getting things ready for a good day's work of trying and failing to sell your things to your customers. So he grew up foraging, like living out in the woods in the middle of nowhere with his family. And so he has a pretty good idea of what you can eat, what you can't eat. And then in between foraging and opening the business, he and Ashlynn decide to have another ACR woohoo. So, good for them, I guess. I don't know. It seems they're quite attracted to each other. Anyways, afterwards, Ashlynn is feeling very hungry, and she needs to keep her needs up because she could have a miscarriage. So, she kind of just eats every few hours. And then this lightning storm happens, and as the lightning storm happens, Violet, who is the squire's wife and part of the Gentry family, and her husband, Alexander, the squire, that was probably I probably should have rephrased that in a more clear way. Anyways, they come to the shop, and Oren is ecstatic. Of course, as this is happening, Ashlynn is struck by lightning, and he is trying to check them out as quickly as possible, but she's kind of decided to come out of the rain for a bit because she is about to pop into her 3rd trimester. And maybe the reason why Oren is not doing so great as a businessman is because he's jumping in puddles instead of selling to people. I don't know, just a thought. So he's going to try now to sell to the yeomen who are on the right over here who he's talking to. That's Arthur and his wife Alessia. They're the yeoman farmers. And then Alexander, the squire, who is of course of the gentry class, and he tries to offer the things they're looking at for cheap instead of like average, like discount the price for them, and they all get incredibly offended. Like, how dare you suggest that we don't have money? We can buy what we want. And he just ends up being very offensive, which is, I think at this point, maybe he's just concerned about Ashlynn and how she was struck by lightning when she was pregnant, and he's kind of trying to rush through things. I don't know. But Arthur is upset that he can't go inside the house, which probably didn't help his sales techniques, I suppose. Ashlynn is feeling a little better after getting into her 3rd trimester, and so she goes out back into the garden to keep gardening and foraging. And then Oren is so exhausted and is just done with these upper class people who won't buy anything and are just standing there, and so he closes up shop. They're probably not happy about that, but what can you do? And Ashlynn is also quite excited here too. She's foraging tea, and now I did not get to try the tea this time. There's a lot of new mods I'm trying for this round, and so, as you can see with the fires, sweeping the ashes in the fire. So there are some things I did not get to try this round that I really wanted to, but I'm gonna have to wait for next time, or I'm gonna have to try with a different family, just because I was still kind of getting used to some of the other mods I downloaded. So that's something I'm excited about. But the next morning, Oren gets up and restocks everything and greets all the new customers who continue to be unhappy with one thing or another. And here you can see he's talking to Sophie Miguel, and so she is the other apprentice at the guards barracks. So she's in training to become a guard. And as he is busy out front with his customers, Ashlynn is foraging, and she accidentally comes in contact with some poison mushrooms that make her feel incredibly sick. And so she tries to eat something, but just ends up passing out in her food. And she is not feeling well at all. And so she's gonna take a rest because her baby is due today. So she really needs to be careful and keep her needs up. So, meanwhile, Oren is out front trying his best to sell things and make some money for his growing family. And he did manage to sell something to Melissa Fancy right as the midwife arrived. So this is Brylee Fisher. She's another peasant, and she's from the Fisher family, and she is the midwife. The reason she is the midwife is because she has really high cooking, mechanical, and logic skills, and also pretty high cleaning. And I feel like those skills would be important for a midwife to have. So basically what she's here to do is to cook meals, tidy things up, and just kind of help out. And of course, Sophie is very upset that she cannot try some of Brylee's stew. But Ashlynn gets up from her nap, and she's starting to feel a little better, like maybe she could keep some food down. So she eats some stew, and Brylee just kind of talks her through what's going to happen and how things are going to go. And then out front, Oren is trying to sell even more things to Melissa, who is just not having it. And then right as she walks away from him, Ashlynn's contractions start, and she gives birth. And Oren is able to come inside for her birth, although he is a little shocked at what's happening. But they have a baby boy, and they name him Sage. And so he will be their heir. And Ashlynn puts him right on the floor, as is a rite of passage for all newborn Sims. But Oren picks him up, so he's not down there for too long. And yeah, like I said, this is their heir. He's their firstborn son. And Brylee gets started on just preparing a few meals to put in their pantry, so they'll have some leftovers for the next few days that they can eat while they're busy with taking care of the baby and running the business. And so Brylee's starting with clam chowder, which is a recipe she learned from her grandmother back in the fishing village where she grew up. And then she's also going to make a berry pie from some of the berries that out back that she picked while Ashlynn was kind of laying down. So they'll have soup and dessert And I don't think I recorded footage of it, but I also had her make salmon dinner. So they have three different things they can eat for the next few days. And then Ashlynn wakes up in the middle of the night, and she's finally feeling better, good enough to snuggle Sage, her new baby at least. And then Oren is going to pay Brylee for her services by giving her some of the forageables that they've harvested and collected over the past few days. And so he's giving her the equivalent of about 500 simoleons, which is a little steeper than the price normally would be, but the reason why he's giving her more is because of how Ashlynn was poisoned by the mushrooms, so she required extra care, and so he was super grateful for that. And now Ashlynn is eating her first meal since giving birth, a bowl of Brylee's clam chowder, and she is just so hungry, and it just feels so good to eat. And her poison mushroom symptoms seem to be clearing up, and she's basically out of the woods. So she's feeling a lot better now, and just very grateful to still be alive and to have her son. And here's little Sage, sleeping like an angel. He actually was a pretty easy baby. Usually the babies in The Sims 2 annoy me just a little bit, sometimes a lot, but he was actually a pretty quiet baby. He didn't require much attention, which is interesting because he ended up being a Libra, which are really outgoing Sims, and usually like the more outgoing babies and toddlers require more attention. And of course, Brylee's ordeal with the poison mushrooms and then giving birth and scares her, and she's having nightmares about it. And so the next morning she gets up and she gives Sage some extra love just because she's just very grateful that she made it through. And also I love this little nursing animation, how they kind of rock back and forth like that. I think it's super cute. So Oren is helping out a little around the house just because of Brylee almost dying. So he's doing dishes, doing some laundry, and just trying to do what he can. And then that day they kind of take a break from their home business and just spend a little time together as a couple and go on the little date together. So, and they really do love each other. They married for love. It wasn't an arranged marriage. Of course, he might end up breaking her heart later down the road because of how he's a romance sim. But yeah, they had a really fun date together. They ended up doing 3 ACR woohoos, I think, which I think is a little excessive. But you know, I guess they were they really want another baby, maybe, I don't know. But she did not get pregnant from those woohoos, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping she would, because it would be nice to have another baby on the way, but also they've, you know, by the time they're going to be taxed for their business and everything, they're not going to be making a lot of money, so they probably can't afford another kid till they make a little more. So, here is Oren fixing the sink. You know, just another day in the life of a peasant, waking up in the middle of the night and fixing your makeshift barrel sink. And, you know, he and Ashlynn both, they do have a hard life. They have to work quite a bit for what they have. But I think that together they're happy. And so this is the last day. Oh no, this is the last day of their business, yeah. Now, here's Sandy. Sandy is another member of that semi-nomadic group of people, like how Meadow is. I still need to come up with like a name for their clan. Maybe I might just end up calling them the Townie clan, I don't know. But, so Sandy and Kennedy are both members of that clan. So they've kind of come by to check the place out and to see what's going on. And he tries his best to sell to them. Oren decides to try a new strategy where he tries to kind of build a relationship with them before selling, but you'll see how that works out for him. And he and Ashlynn here are just kind of teaming up to take care of things together and run the business. She is back on her feet, back to feeling good, and ready to help out at home. At the business. And then Kennedy doesn't go for Oren's sales tricks, so Ashlynn tries to sell to him, and he is not happy. And yeah, they end up going to rank -1. And then Sandy is upset she can't get inside, probably to harass the baby. And Sage ages up into a toddler. There he is. He has his mom's red hair. And so it'll be interesting to see what he looks like when he gets older. And he's already causing trouble. And then the next morning, it's the first day of summer, which means it's tax day. So Goopy, the royal steward, comes over to collect what's due to him, which turns out to be 1,230 simoleons between rent, the home business license, and then income tax and the tithe. And so the treasury is already well on its way to meeting that $5,000 mark. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you had as much fun with this as I did.